Yeah.
And we are live from the Birmingham Bowl pregame show. Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, joined by Matt Scalisi there. And we want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring all of our Birmingham Bowl coverage throughout the week and obviously leading up to this game, Medical Properties Trust. We thank you for your sponsorship. And Matt, wow, you got a backdrop going on there. You are at the Birmingham Bowl right now. I know it was drizzling a little bit earlier, but this is how we work in this virtual world nowadays,
That's right.
We just run and gun. We are just under an hour to kick off and getting ready to see how Auburn performs against Houston. So tell us where you're at right now.
I'm in Progressive Stadium. This is actually my first time in this building. I've not had an opportunity to cover an event here so far. Really impressed so far. I mean, the fans are making their way in. There's lots of gates, lots of opportunities to get in. The cool thing I would say about this stadium, which is something we don't often get with sort of college campus stadiums, is you can actually see a lot around the stadium, and it really feels like you are in the middle of the city. Birmingham is a big part of the setting here. I'm sitting up in the press box, and I can see Sloss Furnace. I can see all these recognizable landmarks in Birmingham. It is a very cool place to watch a game. And this is a hard sellout today. We're expecting a really big crowd. Hopefully the weather won't keep a lot of people away. But I'm looking down the windows right here, and I'm already seeing the fans pouring in through the gates. So it looks like it's going to be a good crowd for Auburn today.
Yeah, that's great. And, of course, Protective Stadium just going up. I know UAB played their first game October 2nd in that stadium against Liberty, and certainly a beautiful stadium, a beautiful backdrop. And, of course, they're in Birmingham. And, of course, I have been told in years past, and you could probably relate to this, the weather hasn't always been its best. But looking at the radar, it looks like things are starting to clear up, and certainly good news that fans are pouring in. And, I think they'll have a good show. When you talk about these two football teams and what this means to this Auburn football team, a 6-6 season under first-year head coach Brian Harsin, certainly not the season that maybe they hoped they would have as things were trending upwards for them. There were some great performances, some games where Auburn looked like they would be able to put things away and unfortunately weren't able to. And we kind of saw that up and down trend throughout the season. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl sort of being the nail in the coffin, the dagger where Auburn had the lead and all things pointed to Auburn perhaps taking that one away from Alabama and wasn't able to get the job done. But when you look at this matchup, we'll get into the keys of this game. But as we get ready for kickoff, in your opinion, Matt, how did this Auburn team get here? And for the first-year head coach, Brian Harsin, what is the significance of this football game and winning this to close the chapter on 2021 and look ahead to 2022?
Well, I think in college football today, how you start your tenure as a head coach is very important. I think there used to be a phrase we used a lot, talking about honeymoons with a new head coach. Those don't really exist anymore. We know that everybody feels a sense of urgency. Nobody wants to get left behind. And you have to show very quickly, I think, that you are able to be competitive, that your program is improving and is becoming more competitive with the teams that you have to play every year. Now, that's a really high standard in Auburn's case because they're having to play against Alabama every year. They're having to play against Georgia every year. They're having to play against Texas A&M, who is now becoming a bigger force on the recruiting trail. This is not an easy league to keep up with the Joneses, and Auburn needs to show pretty quickly under Brian Harsin that they can be competitive with those top programs in the league. They just put together a recruiting class that ended up being way above what a lot of people were expecting them to finish with. So that's a good sign. And there's some momentum and some positive energy in the program. They needed that after a really rough finish to the season on the field. Today is an opportunity to kind of continue that positive momentum and show that things are going in the right direction under Brian Harsin at Auburn.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's where we see teams especially when you have the opt-outs and the guys that aren't going to be playing, and we'll get into that momentarily. But I do think it is certainly important to kind of point that out as coaches are trying to rally the team, keep guys together, keep the morale up, especially when you have big changes happening. One of those big changes to the quarterback, Bo Nix going to Oregon. So now you're relying on TJ Finley, who was injured in the Iron Bowl, and certainly will have a big role today as the starting quarterback. And before we dive into that, Matt, I do want to ask you specifically, when you look at this matchup, so Mike Bobo out as the offensive coordinator, being replaced by Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks coach Austin Davis. But it's said that Harsin will have his hand at calling plays. And we heard TJ Finley talk about it coming into this game, that he can, that he said he can honestly say now that he's 100% in control, he thinks there'll be a real difference in the tempo. Maybe we'll see differently. But in your opinion, what does this mean for this Auburn football team with Coach Harsin now being the one to call the plays for this upcoming game?
Well, I think for one thing, it's kind of an opportunity to audition for next season. There's a lot of changes that are going to be happening in the way that this offense looks going into 2022. And today ends up becoming a good opportunity to kind of show a little preview of what that could be like. It's entirely possible that Brian Harsin's influence on the offense could continue after this game today. We are dealing with a new offensive coordinator who does not have a ton of experience calling plays, running an offense, being sort of a solo offensive coordinator. And so there's a pretty safe bet that Austin Davis is going to end up working alongside Brian Harsin and being kind of a team with him when it comes to shaping the offense going forward. So I think today is going to be a little bit of a look at how does Brian Harsin run this offense when he's sort of fully committed to it. How does that affect the rest of the team? Because we know, certainly all of us who've watched Auburn football know in the past that it can be difficult for a head coach to kind of juggle those responsibilities of calling plays and being the head coach of the entire program. But I think more importantly, Lauren, the personnel out there, they've got a real opportunity today, especially some of the younger guys, to step up and say, I should be a bigger part of this offense going forward. I should get some shots at this next year because, we took a few weeks off. We all prepared for the bowl game, and this is what I can do when you give me a little bit of extra time to get ready and get incorporated into this offense.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And certainly, as you get to this point of the season, guys are banged up, guys are hurting. Obviously, we have the opt-out. So kind of digging into that, some of the notable guys that will be missing today that had been sort of announced throughout this last month, in the month of December. Roger McCreary will not be playing. Linebackers, Zacoby McClain, right tackle Brodarius Ham. He opted out of the bowl game. And then, of course, you got Nick Brahms underwent surgery after the Iron Bowl game. So that pretty much left him out of the mix as well. And so with some of those opt-outs and, guys that have decided they aren't going to play in this game that are going to, kind of close this chapter, how significant are those losses for this Auburn football team moving forward? And I think you kind of answered that previously with some of the younger guys are now going to be asked to step up. And so not necessarily a bad thing for some of the younger guys that might get a chance to sort of audition for next season.
No, certainly. Look, every situation like that comes with opportunities for younger guys. But I think in terms of how it impacts it today in this game, Roger McCreary, I would say, is arguably the most talented, most important of those guys that opted out for this game. That said, I think that Auburn has a level of talent and depth on the defensive side of the ball that maybe you don't replace everything that Roger McCreary can do, but you've got a lot of talented guys over there. You've got a great front seven. You've got a lot of talented guys in the secondary. I think Auburn's defense will be okay, even without McCreary and McClain. I think they're going to really be able to set the tone in this game when they're on the field. The other side of things is, I think, where I have a little bit more questions and want to see how Auburn responds. They're missing two offensive linemen who've been key for them this season. They're missing a center and a tackle. That's a really tough combination to have to replace. I think that we saw what this offense can do at its best, kind of around mid-season when things were going well and the offensive line was healthy and sort of feeling themselves a little bit. We also saw how bad it can get, I think, when you go to the Iron Bowl and you're dealing with some banged up guys. You're not dealing with your original starting five. And, Alabama was able to really disrupt that Auburn offense. They took away a lot of great scoring opportunities, and they banged up TJ Finley. So the Auburn offensive line is going to have their hands full today. They're going to need to find some solutions, and some of it's going to be young guys stepping up. Some of it's going to be the coaches putting them in good positions where they can protect TJ Finley or whoever it is at quarterback today, snap to snap. But, to me, that's the bigger concern today out of the guys that are opting out is those offensive linemen that Auburn will be missing.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big key. So what does that look like in terms of the run game? You go up against a Houston football team that has had success and been effective in defending the run, but they have not faced this type of offense before. And so, I want to go back to TJ Finley's comments about the tempo. Are we going to see more tempo? What is it going to look like under Harsin? Are there going to be some things that we haven't seen this season? Things kind of ramp up in that regard. And what does it look like for Tank Bigsby? He didn't play in last year's postseason game. And of course, that being a key factor. And we've seen somewhat of a roller coaster with him this season. Some games where you're like, just give him the ball, let him run the football. He has success. And then some other games you kind of are left scratching your head that, he didn't get to carry the football more than he did. But I do have a feeling that Tank could certainly go out and have a statement game in this one today against this Houston football team. And with that being said, Houston does come in with an 11-game win streak, Matt. They fell to Cincinnati in the AAC title game. And, I think they bring with them a dynamic quarterback and some skill guys that this Auburn football team is going to have to defend. But when you're looking at key matchups, what is it you think when you look at Auburn and this Houston football team? What's maybe a key matchup that you want to see from both teams and where Auburn's really going to have to perform well?
Yeah, I'll go one on each side. I think when Houston has the ball, they're going to be the closest comparison that you don't want to hear if you're an Auburn fan, I think, is Mississippi State, right? That's a game where an opposing quarterback was able to spread the ball around to a lot of different targets, and Auburn wasn't able to get pressure on him to sort of disrupt that offense, and it bit them as the game went on. I think the main solution to that is got to get pressure on this quarterback today. I think Auburn should be able to do that, given the mismatch up front on the line of scrimmage. But still have to execute. You have to get it done. You have to get pressure on the quarterback today. So I think that's huge for Auburn when the defense is on the field. On the other side, I really do think you mentioned Tank Bigsby. A disappointing season for Tank Bigsby. I think we all came into the season thinking he could potentially be, maybe the best back in the SEC, maybe one of the most exciting offensive players in the SEC. Didn't have that kind of season, and I'm not saying it was necessarily Tank Bigsby's fault. I think the offense just didn't lend itself to doing that, to featuring a running back and sort of pounding it between the tackles. This is a game where I think there may be more opportunities for space to open up in the middle on the line of scrimmage. Again, the Auburn offensive line has questions they're going to have to answer today for that to be the case. But if you can get Tank Bigsby going, if you can make him the centerpiece of the offense today and have a big day for him, that, I think, more than anything else, that would leave this season and this fan base with a really good taste in their mouth going into 2022.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with that. And one thing I do want to pinpoint for this Houston football team, they are a well-balanced team. They're very well-balanced in the run game, the pass game, and they are efficient in the red zone. So I think those will be some key areas for this Auburn football team, defending well in the red zone, defending the run, defending the pass, getting after the quarterback. That's going to be huge for them. And it's worth noting Marcus Jones, their return specialist and cornerback star player, has also opted out. So that will change some of the dynamic of this football game for them defensively as well. But I think this can be Tank Bigsby's day. TJ Finley, I'm not sure if he's quite 100% at this point, but we will, certainly see a good bit of him and see what he's able to do. Are they going to let him throw the ball around? Are we going to see more, more of the run game kind of open up? And
yeah,
really
and you mentioned, sorry, you also mentioned the faster pace that they talked about this week. I think that's going to be a good thing for TJ Finley in this offense.
Yep.
I think you simplify things a little bit when you do that, but I think that's maybe a good thing for this offense. I think they at times were asking a little bit too much of TJ Finley in that Iron Bowl, and I think that's when things started to fall apart. So find what works for you, keep it simple, and try to just win your individual matchups in this game. And I think Auburn should be able to do that. I think they're going to have the more talented team on the field today. Don't make mistakes. Don't put yourself in bad positions, and just execute when you have the opportunity. And I think that should be enough for Auburn to get the win today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And shout out to all the folks writing in today, our viewers. We appreciate, obviously, the insight. Carrie Yang, I know, wrote in, said she hopes Tank that they hope that Tank can get 150 yards or more. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Certainly if he could have that kind of game, that would certainly be a good way to go out. And, just to build some confidence from this football team, I think that'll be big for them. So, of course, we will have the post-game recap here as soon as things end, and Matt can get in a place where he can chat for a few minutes and give us his take on the game. So that game, about to kick off here at the top of the hour, 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN there at Protective Stadium, the new Protective Stadium downtown. So, again, we appreciate that. And we certainly appreciate our sponsors, Medical Properties Trust, who has been with us here in the postseason, help providing our sponsorship for Auburn's postseason run here against Houston in the Birmingham Bowl. So, again, we thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Enjoy the press box. I can't wait to hear what the spread of food is for you guys. I hope it is legit.
I think we're waiting on halftime for that, but we've got coffee right now is what's on offer. So
yeah, halftime, but that's good. A little lunch action, maybe some hot dogs. I don't know what they're going to have for you, but
we'll see.
Be sure to indulge in that spread for me, and we'll
I
check
will
in with you as soon as things wrap up.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Lauren. We'll be here, and obviously check us out here on Facebook and YouTube, wherever you're watching us. We will be putting up a bunch of highlights, video clips from around the game today. So enjoy all of that from our AL.com crew as well.
Yep. Sounds good, guys. Thank you all. See you back here in a few hours.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.